How's it going, guys? This is going to be a build guide for my cold damage over time raider that I league started with in Expedition League. And I'm going to start this off by running a 10-way Maven encounter that I purposely ran and running with temp chains and 40% LE resistances. Ooh, and that's a rig wall. Just to give you an idea of what this is like. This would be easier if I would just ran this white, but making the monsters tanky here kind of will help show the survivability of the build here a bit. And the damage is pretty decent, I would say. There's a lot more potential on a cold dot build. Probably that isn't a raider. But the raider gives you a lot of cool features that you can't get on other classes. Mostly being dodge. You also get exposure, lowering elemental resistances of nearby monsters by 20% on a raider. So that was what was telling me I needed to try and make an elemental build on a raider. Okay, we need to keep an eye on this guy. Ooh. Burning ground, I'm not immune to. You can still take damage from burning ground, even though your ailment's immune. Ooh. Okay, this kind of got kind of chaotic. Okay, though. I would have been fine fighting all 10 of them at the same time, I think. Oh, last one. Nope, this one's still here too. Alright, there we go. Easy peasy. So there are a lot of working parts to this build to make things function as smoothly as I just demonstrated, and I'm going to go through everything step by step. I'm going to go through the gear, I'm going to go through the gems, the passive tree, the ascendancies. I'm going to show you how to use the trade website to find a weapon for yourself for this build. I'm going to go through the build mechanics. I'm going to go through an entirely different set of gear for a more like in-game focused setup that is a little more currency intensive. And there's timestamps down in the description below. There's multiple path of building links down in the description. And yeah, this has been a fantastic build. I've league started this exact same build 5 different times, 4 times on an occultist, and now this time on a raider. And it's not as easy to get things going on a raider, but once you do, it's still very, very powerful build. The combining of dodge with chill, slowing enemies' action speed, while like gives you more of an opportunity to manually dodge things, to not have to rely on your dodge chance to avoid things, and it just makes for a very solid, well-rounded build. There's not anything in the game that I like this build can't do outside of like super deep delving, but you're going to be able to encounter like any of the bosses and stuff at reasonable levels and things in delve with no issue. And this build is great for like learning boss mechanics. If you're unfamiliar with things, I highly recommend you trying out a cold dot build. Just like the slowing enemies down, give you a chance to like understand what's happening, how to react, looking for signals and things. And yeah, it's a fantastic build. I hope you enjoy. Yeah, let's just jump into it. Okay, so I'm going to start by going over like the basic gems and what we have going. We have a Creeping Frost. We have Cold Snap. We have Vortex. We have an Orb of Storms. Steel Skin, Enduring Cry, Vigilant Strike, Frostblink, and I've got 2 auras, which are Clarity and Malevolence. So this is the basic setup for the build. This is exactly how my character looked when I leveled it to 100, aside from the level, like, XP gear. Basic thing. Creeping Frost is linked to Bone Chill, Arcane Surge, and faster casting. This is what I'm using to chill things, essentially. Enemies in chilling areas from supported skills increase cold damage taken by chill effect. So they take enemies in chilling areas from the creeping frost take increased cold damage, essentially. So this I can spray around wherever. So main links here, I have Vortex and Cold Snap both in my 6-link Carcass deck, with Awakened Swift Affliction, Awakened Controlled Destruction, Hypothermia, and Awakened Elemental Focus. Now, at the beginning of Expedition League, there was talk of removing the cold damage over time off of Hypothermia, and if they did that, you just throw in Efficacy, and everything's still just fine. It doesn't really matter. At least for my build. I'm not using a 6-link for one specific skill here. So up here I have my auras. I've got Clarity, I've got Malevolence, I've got Enduring Cry, and Steel Skin. All just unlinked. So down here is my Vigilant Strike, linked with Faster Attacks, linked with Ancestral Call, and Fortify. So Ancestral Call allows it to hit, like, additional nearby enemies. So you don't have to be on top of enemies, you don't have to target them, it'll just hit anything close. Faster Attacks makes it attack faster, and Fortify has supported skills have 34% increased Fortify duration, and since Vigilant Strike has a Fortify duration on it, Fortify actually scales the duration. So it's really easy to get Fortify once your gems are all leveled and qualityed and whatever you need. I guess it's just Vigilant Strike, it's qualityed really, and faster attacks. Once those are all qualityed and stuff, I think I get like an 18-second Fortify. So it's pretty amazing. So in my staff up here is where the magic happens. This is where the Orb of Storms is linked with Awakened Hex Touch, Frostbite, and Despair, and is also linked with Frostblink. So both my Orb of Storms and my Frostblink can curse with both Frostbite and Despair. Now, Orb of Storms does other things. Orb of Storms continuously attacks, and Orb of Storms hits with only lightning damage. So, on my staff here, I've got +3 level of all cold spell skill gems. There's a little bit of spell damage on it. The attack speed is nice for Vigilant Strike, and then you can craft cold damage over time multiplier. The most important thing is +3 to level of all cold spell skill gems. And you don't have to use a staff. I will go over that a little bit more later. So Carcass Jack is kind of just like best in slot for any AoE build, especially in softcore. Like, you make the AoE of things just insanely massive. My helmet, there's really nothing too much going on here except for the fact that it has strength. In Helmet Enchant, Vortex has 30% increased cooldown recovery rate. So that means, pretty much, I can run and just hold down Vortex, and, like, I'm going to cover pretty much all the area. So if I took this off, see the gaps in the... Oh, I ran into the wall. See the gaps? Like, that's, like, the less cooldown. So it really helps a lot with map clear to have the cooldown recovery. It's usually fairly cheap as well. Let me turn this back on. Okay, so on my amulet here, you can get an amulet that has plus of all cold skill gems, but early on you're not going to be able to get that. What I have here is pretty simple. This is item level 64 amulet. It just has life, cold damage, and strength and intelligence. Strength is pretty heavily needed, especially if you want to level the Enduring Cry and Steel Skin all the way up. My ring here is +1 minimum endurance charge and 4% chance to gain endurance charge on kill. This is a veiled mod that you have to unveil. The craft will only give you +1 minimum endurance charges. The unveil will give you the chance to gain endurance charge on kill. So that's what I have on one of my rings. It's pretty much solely dedicated to giving me endurance charge generation. That'll help keep me alive, physical damage, and being a raider, dodge slash evasion based builds kind of lack the physical damage mitigation. So endurance charges help a lot with that. My other ring has strength on it, which is needed, and then just life and resists. My belt, same thing. Life and resists, chaos res. I leveled in Pure Halo Breachstones, so chaos res is something I was seeking. So I have a bunch of that. Gloves here. This is one of the last additions I made. I just had some life resist gloves until I could get some life and cold dot multiplier gloves. I think Elder gloves or Hunter gloves can roll cold damage over time multiplier. I'm not sure if it's Elder or Shaper, but Hunter gloves can roll all damage over time multiplier. So I was able to get a little bit of extra damage out of the gloves. Now my boots are something kind of special. Now, I think these boots cost me like 30 chaos. It wasn't a lot. They don't have a T1 life roll, and they only have 25% movement speed. So in the eyes of a lot of people, these boots don't quite meet the standard. However, in my case, since I am a raider, like, I'm still moving pretty fast, I feel like, just with my, like, permanent onslaught buffs. So losing 5% movement speed on boots does not really hurt a raider that badly. Especially if you can get the movement speed if you haven't been hit recently, that's really cool as well. Plus, the fugitive boots are also cool with the chaos res. So I've got quad res boots with movement speed and life. Pretty happy about these. So that's all of the gear here. I went over the gems. I got a trinket, my flasks. This is a dodge-based build. Eternal Life Flask of Staunching is something I just recommend always on dodge-based builds. You're not going to get hit often. This is going to, I mean, ideally I'd like increased or reduced recovery rate or whatever it is, increased recovery rate. So this recovers in like 2 seconds. So it'll recover almost half of my life with the flask nodes on the tree. It's a very, very useful flask. The sulfur flask is something I added in fairly late as well. Where's my life regen? Life regen is 261.9. If I drop this consecrated ground, it jumps to 631. So I'm gaining like... Oh, I'm not doing the math. I'm gaining a lot of life regen just from this flask. So this really helps sustainability, especially in like more hectic situations. Quartz flask is not as needed as it is in other builds because the raider just gets phasing automatically through the Ascendancy. But the extra little bit of dodge is nice, and this is where I have poison immune. The granite flask is kind of questionable. It's not necessarily needed. That's where I have my curse immunity, or curse removal, I should say. And I prefer, even though this is getting cut in half from acrobatics, so it's only giving me 750 armor. I enjoy having that extra 8% physical damage reduction. I'm happy with that. 8% physical damage reduction, sure, give it to me. Because if I'm going to die on this build, almost always because of physical damage. And then I have reduced charges used, movement speed, Quicksilver Flask. Pretty simple stuff there. Alright, diving into the passive tree here. I leveled this as a raider with Caustic Arrow and Toxic Rain. Up to like level 50 or 60-ish. I live streamed it all on my YouTube channel and past live streams. All of that's there if you want to go dig through the VODs and see exactly how I leveled through things. But I leveled Caustic Arrow just through the general Caustic Arrow stuff, pushing all the way up here to Growth and Decay. And about the time I got to this point with all the Chaos Dot stuff, I might have gone Acro Phase Acro, but then the goal was push all the way up to Elemental Overload. And once I got to Elemental Overload, that's when I swapped to the Cold Dot build. You can't, like, I can't justify just, like, saying, go ahead, just the second you can get Vortex, level 28, go for it. Because the stuff's not here in the Raider tree. The reason we're using Raider, though, is because of the Ascendancy. So, just recently, like in all of my previous Cold Dot builds on Occultist, I've always sought after an Onslaught on Kill Abyss Jewel. That has been removed from the game as of the time of recording this video. So now, one of the easiest ways to get Onslaught is just to play Raider. So you get Onslaught. Here. 20% increase attack, cast, and movement speed with some extra Onslaught effect. So my next point went into Quartz Infusion. Quartz Infusion gives 15% chance to dodge attacks and spells, and gives you permanent phasing. Now, I think this is probably the most powerful Ascendancy node of any class in the game. Phasing is so valuable. With the amount of monsters in this game, I personally struggle to play this game without phasing. Like, I don't know how you're supposed to actually like have collision with all these enemies. So it's like I'm running a Quartz Flask on every build that I play because phasing is just so good. Whether it's a dodge build or not, the phasing is just needed, I feel like. So going back here to Avatar of the Veil, this gives you 50% chance to avoid elemental ailments. They used to give 100% chance, but we get that on the tree down here, Crystal Skin, to fill out the elemental ailment avoidance. But nearby enemies have fire, cold, and lightning exposure, while you have phasing, applying minus 20 to those resistances. So this is giving minus 20 cold resistance to nearby enemies, thus increasing the damage of the cold dots. And this is where you're getting before you get into maps. And I've also made it up to Elemental Overload by that point in time. So lastly, for Uber Lab, I went and got 100% increased effect of Onslaught from Avatar the Chaste, and increased chance to evade during Onslaught. Now, the reason I do not go for the Frenzy Charge here, in the Frenzy Charge generation, because Cold Snap has built-in Frenzy Charge generation, you don't need it. So this is the ideal choice going for Avatar of the Chase. So now looking at how my passive tree looks currently, the big thing that like differs from this build compared to an Occultist Cold Dot build is there's just not room for Cluster Jewels. If I was going to use Cluster Jewels, I would have to like completely rework like a large majority of this tree. Probably like reroute it through all up here and completely change the build entirely. And it's just not going to be able to retain the survivability doing that. So let me just walk you through the tree. I got through all the life and evasion rating at the start. Grab Finesse and Primal Spirit. I love Primal Spirit because it gives you increased flash charges game and gives you increased flask effect, but it also 20% strength, which is really great, especially early on most Ranger builds, if you need that strength. So coming down here to Crystal Skin gives 15% chance to avoid ailments. The split nodes here give 30% chance each, and the small node at the beginning gives 5% chance. In total, that's 50% chance to avoid ailments, combined with the Ascendancy Avatar of the Veil. That gives you 100% chance to avoid elemental ailments, and so you're immune to Ignite, Chill, Freeze, Shock, Sapped, Scorched, and Brittle. All that. You just don't have to deal with it. With the changes to the Flasks, absolutely extremely powerful. So down here I have Wind Dancer. Wind Dancer gives less damage taken if you haven't been hit recently. Since we're a dodge build, that currently, just in my hideout, I'm 45% chance to dodge and I have a flask, and I can get elusive, and it's pretty much like almost capped at that point. You're not getting hit often, essentially. And then I grabbed thick skin for life. There's also some ailment avoidance here, but I have it taken, like covered from crystal skin, so you don't really need it as much. Pushing across herbalism, dodge builds are great with herbalism and profane chemistry, as they increase life flask recovery, which scales your eternal life flask through the roof. Jewel socket here, I have a you cannot be cursed with silence corruption on this jewel. With the changes to the curse immune flask, this is hugely helpful. You won't have to worry about like, oh, I can't cast spells anymore. So acrobatics and phase acrobatics is what gives us our initial dodge chance. You get 40% chance to dodge attacks and 30% chance to dodge spells, but your armor, energy shield, and chance to block are lowered in exchange for that, which is fine. So here I have life. Here I have my Watcher's Eye. Damage over time while affected by malevolence. This I did not get till after level 100. I think this was 9 exalts for the Malevolence Watcher's Eye. Then, yeah, Propane Chemistry I mentioned. I got the Scion Life Wheel. Up here, I get Ash, Frost, and Storm. Ash, Frost, and Storm gives a 20% increased effect of non-damaging ailments, which is increased effect of Chill. Chill is a major factor in this build. I'll dig into that a little bit more in a few minutes. Elemental Equilibrium. So this is where the Orb of Storms really comes into play. Orb of Storms hits with lightning damage, and it continually will hit, and every time it hits, it lowers the enemy's fire and cold resistance by 50. Now, since I'm using a cold dot stuff, look at it. All that stuff's just there on the ground until I have to cast it again, so it's going to continually do damage throughout its duration. So the Orb of Storms can proc the Elemental Equilibrium to really pop the damage off. This jewel is a Corrupting Blood, cannot be inflicted on your jewel. Cold damage, area damage, just whatever it could get. I don't remember this being too pricey either. There's new divination cards that can give you Corrupted Blood jewels. So that's cool. Here's some mana regeneration and life, and then Elemental Overload. Elemental Overload gives you 40% more elemental damage if you've dealt a critical strike in the past 8 seconds, and that is something that we are also relying on Orb of Storms to do. Orb of Storms will continuously be hitting things, and it's going to be what procs the Elemental Overload to give us all the extra damage, and ailments never count as being from critical strikes, but we're not dealing critical strikes. We're not scaling critical strikes at all, so Elemental Overload is just 40% more damage almost always, and then combined with the minus 50 resistances, like, there's a lot of damage packed up in here. It's just on the far opposite side of the tree. Now let's push up in the shadow area. So in the shadow area, we got Blood Drinker to push over here to get to No Witnesses. No Witnesses gives us a chance to gain Elusive on kill. Elusive gives 15% chance to dodge spells or attacks, and 30% increased movement speed, but it slowly degrades over time. So this, when you stack it with the dodge that I showed previously, I would be at 75 attack dodge cap, and I'd be at 66 spell dodge because I'm using the Carcass check. If I wasn't using the Carcass check, I'd have a craft to give me the other spell dodge to cap me off. So then up here, Growth and Decay. Growth and Decay gives 10% damage over time multiplier, and I take the left side of this because 0.8% life regen is pretty huge. So we're getting 2.2 life regen from these 3 nodes, along with the increased damage over time multiplier. And then I push down to Cold-Hearted Calculation because it connects to Elemental Focus. Elemental Focus gives increased effect of non-damaging ailments, which is increasing the effect of Chill, which increases our damage because of Bone Chill on the Creeping Frost. I still want to call it Arctic Breath. They changed the name of this skill like 2 years ago, and I still can't I still can't do it. Anyways, Fingers of Frost up here gives increased effective cold ailments, and I really could get this extra node here. But you get cold damage over time multiplier, and enemies become chilled as they unfreeze. And you get a chance to freeze enemies which are chilled. And then I got Written in Blood, just for extra life, and 10 strength, which is needed. And then Whispers of Doom allow me to apply additional curse. So because of Whispers of Doom, I can apply both Frostbite and Despair. Despair increases damage from damage over time, and Frostbite lowers cold res by almost another 50. So I have to get Whispers of Doom in order to use both of these. So looking at the tree more zoomed out, if Whispers of Doom is required, Fingers of Frost is insanely useful. Elusive is like needed. You have to get this. Elemental Overload is needed. Elemental Equilibrium is needed. Like, where do you take out passives anywhere for Cluster Jewels? It's just not here. You can do it on an Occultist build, but not really on a Raider. So this is pretty much what your tree looks like. Like extra points here. It's like I will say curse effect. I can get the chill. Like if I wanted a little bit more damage. Oh, that's right at 6,000 life. Okay, so there's the tree. I'm gonna have this tree in the path of building for this in the description. And now I'm gonna change things up a bit to go for more upgraded gear and talk about how to gear the character a little bit more. Okay, so now I'm going to change a few things up here. Pull out these things I just put in. And I'm going to take out this jewel socket. Pull out the jewel socket. I want to pull this node. Pull out this node. And these 4 points I'm going to put into this reduced reservation. And we're going to upgrade the gear pretty substantially. So there's going to be another path of building link to more in-game gear. So first thing I want to mention here is that you do not have to use the staff. You can use this is what I was using up to like almost level 90 plus. A Spine of the First Claimant. This can drop in normal lab from the chests at the end. Has good attack speed, has good cold dot, multi, and has cold damage and cast speed as well. So this is a very solid Sceptre. Getting a Sceptre that is comparable to this is pretty rare. So this is very solid Sceptre. And then for a shield, you need +1 to all cold spell skill gems. If you can get spell damage or cold damage on it as well, that's fine. This is an item level 16 shield that I was using all the way up until I switched to a staff. So the gear, if you're gonna go the Sceptre route, like this is a 1 chaos item. So I don't know about the colds 1 chaos for any just basic at this point. We're about 2 weeks into the league. So something I want to look at here is staves. So I have a search set up here, plus the all level of cold spell skill gems staff, minimum of 3. So you're going to look for any staffs that have +3 cold spell skill gems, and then I'm searching for either at least 50 cold spells damage, so it's going to be spell damage or cold damage, and or cold damage over time multiplier on a staff. It's going to find staff because that's the only thing it can roll on. But search here, there's currently only 29 of them available. This one costs 3 chaos. Let's see, what do we have here? This one has +3 to all cold spell skill gems. It's on an eclipse staff, so it has increased crit chance, and it's rolled with increased crit chance. Has 50 spell damage, has an open suffix. And on this, I can craft cold damage over time multiplier. This staff could do everything in the game. It doesn't need to be 5-linked. A 5-link would allow you to be able to curse with your Frostblink. But the staff can do everything in the game. The one thing that you want to look out for is you do not want flat cold damage to spells on your staff or Sceptre if you go that route. Well, let me find one here, because there's sure to be one. Here, this one right here, 20 Chaos. This one has cold damage to spells. This is going to add cold damage to your Orb of Storms, so your Orb of Storms is no longer to apply Elemental Equilibrium. So this staff does not work, but this staff up here does work. This staff would work, but it doesn't have an open suffix. You'd have to annul this to try and get the cold dot multi suffix craft. Same with this one here. This one has damage over time multiplier on it as well. But it would require an annulment as well. So you'd want to find one that either has cold damage over time multiplier. Let me find one with cold dot multi. Like this right here. So this one right here doesn't have the spell damage, but it does have cold dot multi higher than you could craft it. So you can't craft it this high. On this, you could purchase this. You need an open prefix to craft spell damage. And this staff would work as well. So I have a bunch of these. I've continually just been grabbing these staves to try and make a good one for myself. This is the best one I had found until the most recent one. Eclipse Staff is really good because the increased critical strike chance increases the crit chance of storms. So my Orb of Storms currently... Orb of Storms offense has a 5% crit chance, which isn't a lot. So the guarantee on it proccing Elemental Overload isn't super high. So that's what this other gem is here. So if I had a 6-link, I could throw increased critical strikes in. So with this staff, like, the same thing. It has +3, it has spell damage, it had an open suffix, I could craft cold dot multiplier. This one came with cold dot multiplier and +3 cold spell skill gems. Also came with Culling Strike, which was cool on Eclipse Staff, so the crit chance is cool. I used the Exalt, crafted the spell damage. Same thing here. Well, this is probably, I think this is the first one that I got. This one had a little bit of spell damage, but didn't have the open suffix, and I just used the +3 with spell damage craft on it. So all three of these staffs were really cheap. Not factoring in the cost of linking them. But if there's an open suffix, like on this one, if I bring it up here, no, that's wrong. If I take it to the crafting bench, and if I have a craft that gives it quality, if I craft this on it first, I got 14% quality, then it is much easier to link. So if you're just trying to get a 5-link, if you can craft the quality on it to link it, and then go back and then craft the damage over time multiplier after you've gotten it linked. That's an easy way to link it. So the staff that I ended up getting, it like came with +3. It had the cold damage. It had cold dot multi already on it. It came with mana and mana regen, which are both really good. And I had an open suffix still, so I put cast speed. I could have put in crit chance, but I happened to I would have crafted crit chance of spells on this, but I happened to 6-link this, so I can get the increased critical strike support into this staff. Just a second before I do this, my Vortex damage currently says it is doing 93,000 cold damage per second. With what I have. So we'll compare that again once I have all this gear swapped. So we'll throw that in, and then just to compare, crit chance is now 16.8% on the Orb of Storms, and I now have more of a crit chance on my Frostblink. So let me just swap the other gear in. This is just like fleshing things out. I got a belt that had an abyssal socket and an open suffix, so I could craft cooldown recovery rate, which furthers the Vortex cooldown. It lowers my cold snap cooldown, it lowers my enduring cry cooldown, and it lowers the frostblink cooldown. So I got gloves that had resistances and stuff, but it had a higher cold dot multi on it, so that's good. It's shaper gloves apparently, not elder. So throw that in. I got a ring that had a bunch of strength on it to cover the strength that was on the helmet. This ring has high life with the endurance charge. It had an open suffix so that I could get aspect of the spider. So that swaps in. I got an All's Uprising that gives malevolence no reservation. So this means when I swap this in, you're going to see my mana reservation change. So now I'm still using malevolence, but it doesn't cost any reservation. This amulet cost me 9 exalts. This drops off of all in the Delve. One of the hardest bosses to fight in the game. And there is another option here. You can get plus to level of all cold skill gems on an amulet. And I was searching for cold dot multi and plus, like, online in League. It just doesn't exist. So if I turn off the cold dot multi, there's a lot more of these. If you can get an amulet as plus the level of all cold skill gems, or just like cold damage, like these will work as a replacement for that. But if you can get an All's Uprising, this gives you the ability to throw in Hatred. So I throw this in, I can throw these back in, this in here. I have to take out the faster casting to put in the other thing here. Fix this back up. So now I have Hatred that's going to take the place of my Malevolence, since Malevolence has no reservation. And I also crafted on to this ring Aspect of the Spider. Aspect of the Spider periodically applies a spider's web debuff to nearby enemies that can stack up to 3 times. Each spider web hinders every 1 second, so it slows enemies even further. Factoring like on top of all of the chill effect stacking that we're doing. And it increases damage taken by up to 15%. Like for the 3 spider webs. So now that I have all this other gear in, yeah, this is going to be the other path, like POB link. I can throw on Aspect of the Spider. That's why I grabbed these reduced reservation nodes. And with all these gear upgrades, my Vortex damage is currently saying 152,000. So I increased the damage by over 50% with these additions. And yeah. So that's where that is. And this is the gear setup that I'm going to be using in the Sirus fight that's at the end. And I didn't change these boots because these boots are just nuts. I'm very happy with these boots. So there's going to also be another Path of Building link, a third one, in which I'm going to show off what the like absolute peak tier gear looks like for this kind of character. Like I have the same setup, Malevolence, All's Uprising. I had an Onslaught, Abyss Jewel way back when. So this is a legacy jewel that you wouldn't be able to have. But like, this is a mirror tier staff. Cold dot multi is not a prefix anymore. This has damage over time multiplier, has cast speed, has crit chance. It has the enchant on it. Quality effects, elemental damage. So there's extra damage there. 30% quality staff. Getting a Carcass Jack that has +2 socketed AoE or duration gems will raise your Vortex level by an additional 2. That is a huge, huge damage buff. So I have my Cold Dot multiplier on Fingerless Silk Gloves that gives 16% increased spell damage. That's more damage. A chance to unnerve enemies on hit. Unnerved enemies take increased spell damage. So this was more damage there. The helmet that I had on the other character, I was able to craft with the -9 cold res nearby enemies. But this is Awakener Orbed with a Shaper helmet that nearby enemies take increased elemental damage. I also have physical damage from hits taken as cold damage here as well. On this belt, I hit the Redeemer Exalt on it. It has cold damage on the implicit. Boots have cooldown recovery rate on them. As much life as like possible. I can shock with focus from this ring. And this ring is just kind of life and resistances, filling everything else out. So once you've reached the point that I have on my actual character, the next goal is to get a +2 level of AoE or duration gems Carcass Jack. That'll genuinely run you like 30 to 40x for just the +2. +2 of both from a double corrupt is just absurdly expensive, and I've never gotten one myself. That's the only thing this build is currently missing. So let me swap back here. I just realized there's something that I forgot to mention. So since we don't need Onslaught, because we're a raider, the Abyssal I got had life on it, has strength on it because I need the strength, and I have enemies hindered by you have 18% reduced life regeneration rate. Now, something an occultist does is removes nearby enemies' ability to regenerate life. And playing on this character, the worst thing by far is hexproof enemies, but enemies that have insane life regeneration can really be a problem as well. So, like, this mod requires at least a level 84 Abyssal. But this, like, lowering enemies' life regeneration rate is pretty huge. Especially when it comes to, like, metamorphs and such. I didn't talk about this helmet much either. I used 14 life and pristine and frigid fossils on this to get the -9. And then I used an Exalt for physical damage from hits taken as fire. So, I did just mention that Carcass Jack. So, your end goal here is, like, this is actually in Expedition League. There's currently one 6-linked Carcass Jack that has +2 AoE or duration gems. I don't even know if it's still here. It's been a while since I searched it. Yeah, still here. 30 Exalts. If I was still playing in Trade League, this would be my next goal. I'd be farming up for this, +2 levels. It's just going to make the damage explode. And there's a bunch of these, because it's like searching if any Carcass Jack that has either. Now, it's also not too far out of the realm of possibility to get one of these that's not linked and link it with the crafting recipe. But you'd need 1,500 fusings and you'd need 1,500 Volurbs. You'd have to purchase those up. That's just another way you could do it. And there's a bunch of 5-link ones here. But yeah, what you really want is the 6-link. Duration or AoE gems, they both work. Because you want it to work for both the Cold Snap and the Vortex. They're both tagged with duration and AoE. So I think that is about it. Let's kind of dig into the mechanics of things. So I have Elemental Focus linked to my Vortex and my Cold Snap. This says supported skills cannot inflict elemental ailments. So what that means is the Vortex cannot chill and the Cold Snap cannot chill. However, chilled ground is chilled ground. The chilled ground left over from Cold Snap still will chill enemies in it regardless of the elemental focus. The same with Creeping Frost. Creeping Frost leaves chilled ground, but it's not linked to elemental focus. It's linked to Bone Chill, and it's increasing the effect of chill. So the highest effect of chill that I can get on enemies comes from the Creeping Frost. I know I keep saying Arctic Breath. They should have just kept the name. This is what'll do the most chill. And what makes this build really, really strong is that on top of all of the dodge and like ability to avoid damage that I have built in, I can slow Sirus by like 20%. His like attack, cast, movement speed, all that. Like even in-game bosses, I'm crippling their like ability to move. So if you're trying to learn the game, whether you play this on Raider or on an Occultist, like a cold dot build like this is very, very, very good at learning boss mechanics because you're able to slow them down through stacking all this chill effect. And to like retouch on that, Ash, Frost, and Storm is chill effect. Elemental Focus right here is chill effect. And then Fingers of Frost is chill effect. And then Bone Chill linked with the Creeping Frost. It's chill effect as well. And Creeping Frost is great for this because these little patches here will move towards enemies if they're not on enemies. They'll move around. So you're going to be chilling things all the time. And just like, as things get hectic, it's really nice. So, that later. What is the next thing I wanted to touch on? Frostblink. Where's Frostblink? So, Frostblink is something I experimented with for the first time this league because the cooldown on Flame Dash and Dash got nerfed pretty heavily. Frostblink found a very interesting place in this build. And since I'm scaling levels of cold gems, like it actually does a pretty hefty amount of flat cold damage. But the unique thing here is it says 20% increased cooldown recovery rate for each normal or magic enemy in area. So both the area that I'm taking off from and the area that I'm reaching, I'm hitting these areas. So if I'm hitting a large pack of enemies, my Frostblink cooldown is just going to be almost instantly back up. And you're able to like constantly chain it back and forth. But also 102% increased cooldown recovery rate for each rare or unique enemy in area. So let's see, the cooldown on this is 2.36 seconds. Hitting a single unique enemy, so if you're fighting a single boss, it's going to cut that in half to 1.18 seconds before you're able to blink again. And this is like an actual teleport. Flame Dash, it has, you have to like have traveled. You're technically still at the back of your Flame Dash until you reach the end. Frostblink is different. You're here and then you're there. Like it's actually like a teleport. It's just like in your hideout, it's kind of hard to show it. If I go find some enemy here, I have to show this off because the Frostblink has really kind of changed things a lot for me. And I've gotten to the point where once you get enough damage on things, you can actually, and I'm also cursing with the Frostblink because it's in here. I'm cursing with Frostbite and Despair. So here's a big pack of enemies. Watch the cooldown rate. And I can blink again. But when I'm in my hideout, I can't. So because there's an enemy here, I could just beat it down with the Frostblink. Which it's a very unique skill. And like I can actually just straight up clear with Creeping Frost and the Curse because it Gives me, like, I got the Arcane Surge and everything. So just my, like, 3 linked Creeping Frost can clear pretty easily as well. And yeah, that's how it goes. And yeah, like Frostblink, Vortex, Frostblink, Vortex, Frostblink, Vortex. Like, you can pretty much clear maps just like chaining packs together like that. Frostblink, Vortex, Frostblink, Vortex, Frostblink, Vortex, Frostblink, Vortex, Frostblink, Vortex, Frostblink, Vortex. And because you're hitting enemies each time with the Frostblink, like, you're able to just like dash around the map like a madman, and it's amazing. So there's that. Anything else I need to mention? Anything else? Let's talk about map rolls. So there's got to be a map in here somewhere that I can't run because it's corrupted or something. There's a few map mods you can't run. Hexproof is like the worst. By far the worst thing. By far. I'll run a majority of things. Like this map here has minus max resistances and crit chance and multi. I'd run this if it didn't have you cannot regenerate life, mana, or energy shield. Like, I'm running Clarity because I need it to cover the cost of these skills. Cold Snap is costing me 99 mana in a 5-link. That's a level 23 Cold Snap in a 5-link costs 93 mana to cast. So, like, this mana buffer here, it's needed because once you get to cast the skills really fast, because you have so much cast speed, like, I need that whole little mana pool down there. So if the Cold Snap was 6-linked, it'd be pretty atrocious. And you start to maybe run into mana issues if once you get the +2 and it's a level 25 Cold Snap at that point. So yeah, the mana issues become more prevalent. Then you definitely would need to go for the level 21 Clarity and really stacking mana regeneration rate, which is really why I keyed in on this staff. You'd want to get Boots Enchant for mana regeneration rate if you cast a spell recently as well. So, Hexproof is a map I don't run. No Regen is a map I don't run. Elemental Reflect is a map I don't run. I do not like to run Reduced Recovery Rate. Because once things get really hairy, you get a lot of monsters on you. Having the, like, losing 60% of the effectiveness of your life flask and your life regen really hurts a lot. Even with the fortify and all the dodge, I need that. Even with the fortify and all the dodge, losing that recovery hurts a lot. And the only other thing is your chance to dodge attacks is unlucky. That makes your dodge chance roll twice. So even though I have a really high dodge chance, like, I don't want it to roll twice. I don't want to get hit by stuff at all. So I feel like a lot of the times that I end up dying, it's because I'm getting hit with fizz damage. Having your dodge chance roll twice hurts a lot. Vulnerability really sucks because we don't have the ability to, like, have curse immune to the flask anymore. Getting hit with bleed that's not corrupting blood can be a pain, especially if the life flask runs out. And I haven't showed the Pantheon. My Pantheon is currently on Soul of Brine King and Soul of Rislatha. Soul of Rislatha is used to regenerate your life flask charges, especially for elongated boss fights. And this is preventing me from getting stun locked. Now, since I have such high dodge, I could go for Soul of Lunaris and get the 8% reduced elemental damage taken if you haven't been hit recently. The reduce from crits, like, this is a good alternative, but I don't like getting stun locked by things, so I'm pretty happy with that. And I'm immune to freeze and chill, so, like, and I don't get stunned often, so, and Glace is a beach map, I can easily have gone and got that, but yeah, I think that's it. I don't think there's anything else I need to cover. like I've played this build. I league started it like 5 different leagues now. All the other ones were on Occultist, and now this one is on Raider. Raider just gives far more speed and quality of life and ability to dodge. You get the ailment immunity, stuff that you cannot get on Occultist, but Occultist does have more damage, just flat out. And you're up in the tree where you can much easier fit in a cluster jewel setup, which you'll be able to see on the occultist path of building that I have in the description. So now I'm going to leave you with Awakener level 7 Sirus. I forgot to put in the last 2 watchdowns when I did it, so enjoy that. And yeah, that's going to be all for me. Hit the like button, subscribe, and I will see you tomorrow. I'll be back with more SSF progression on Voltaxic Burst Assassin. Anyways, enjoy. See you later. Alright. Last phase, Awakener. Awakener level 7, because I forgot to put the other 2 watchstones in. This is a bit odd with Frostblink. This is the second time I've ever done this with Frostblink, so let's hope it goes well. It should be just fine. Yay, dodge character. Okay, make sure I keep that Fortify up. Fortify will save me. Corrupting Blood immunity plus dodge will keep me alive from the beam. I mean, just risk it. Yeah. Dealing with the spinning beams here is a little sketch with Frostblink. Because you don't get 2 uses. You got to be very smart with how you're using the movement skill. But being able to slow Sirus down by 21%, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. I guess that's not factoring in the hinder from aspect of the spider. Oh, right here. No, he's over to the left. Audio will tell you as long as your headphones are on the right way. Uh-oh, over to the beam. Alright, will you die, please? Uh-oh. None of those hit me. There we go. Awakener's Orb. Ivory Watchstone. And the gloves. Oh, if you get the gloves, we can't end the video without volleying these gloves. Let's do that. Alright, what we got? What we got? E3 Vol Orbs. Life. Bone. And rip. Okay, well, that was fun. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow back with my SSF shenanigans. Yeah, this one's kind of weak. How's Awakener's Orb doing? Ooh, 3.8x? And I can farm some. Serious, that's not hard. Cool. Awesome.